Want to know what a pirate's daily life was really like? When it comes to real pirates, the story isn't nearly as epic as in Hollywood movies. Let's talk about the parts you don't see on screen. The side of piracy that's not about thrilling adventures, but about ships that reek of sweat, spoiled food, and diseases waiting to take you out before you even get close to any treasure. So let's uncover the brutal reality of pirate life, far from the silver screen. Hygiene problems. 1. Toilet. If you imagine pirates having toilets like on a cruise ship, forget it. Pirates back in the day had no such thing as modern plumbing. The only facility they had was a small hole at the front of the ship, called the head. That's where they did their business, straight into the ocean. The problem was, that hole was right at the edge of the ship, completely exposed, with nothing comfortable to hold onto. So if the sea was rough, especially during a storm, the risk wasn't just getting your pants wet, but falling overboard. And if you fell into the middle of the ocean, well, consider it your last goodbye. And it doesn't stop there. Hygiene after doing your business was almost non-existent. No soap, no toilet paper, and certainly no clean fresh water to spare. Most of the time, they just rinsed off with seawater. 2. Bathing? On a pirate ship, taking a bath wasn't part of daily life. Honestly, even once a week was a luxury. The reason's simple. Fresh water was the most valuable thing on board, reserved for drinking and cooking. If you wasted it on washing, the supply could run out long before reaching land, so the priority was clear: water for the stomach, not the skin. If they did want to wash, the only option was seawater, but that just made things worse. It dried out their skin, tangled their hair, and if they had cuts, the salt burned like hell. So most pirates just said forget it and skipped bathing altogether. The result? The crew carried around a signature smell. Layers of sweat that clung to their skin for days. Crusty salt from seawater stuck in their hair and clothes. A musty, damp odor from clothes that never fully dried. The stench was so strong that records from 17th century European sailors claimed you could smell pirates before you even spotted their ship on the horizon. So yeah, killer body odor wasn't a joke. It was a real thing. Skin health. On a pirate ship, staying clean was nothing but a fantasy. Every day the crew crammed into hot, damp, sunless spaces. That's where head lice and body lice became their loyal companions. Long hair that hadn't seen soap in months turned into bug nests, while clothes worn for weeks, even months, without washing, made the parasites feel right at home. At night, when everyone slept shoulder to shoulder, lice just crawled freely from one body to another. Scabies was practically guaranteed for every pirate. The itching was insane, so bad they scratched until they bled. And on a filthy ship, a small wound was never just a scratch. One slip with a rope or a rusty nail could lead to infection fast. Skin swelled, pus oozed, fever took over. Their hair was a tangled mess, their beards stiff and crusted with salt, and their clothes were always damp. The daily perfume on board was a mix of sweat, mildew, and rotting wounds. And if an infection got really bad, there was only one option left: amputation. No anesthesia, just a strong swig of rum to dull the edge. A knife or axe was heated over fire, and then with one brutal swing, the limb was gone. The screams, mixed with the creaking wood and crashing waves, told the true horror of pirate life. Some survived, but many bled out or died from yet another infection. 2. Food that makes you lose your appetite. On a pirate ship, food wasn't about taste. It was about survival. Forget the image of grand feasts with fresh meat and overflowing fruit. The reality was hard, salty, spoiled, and often downright disgusting. Their main menu was hardtack, a rock-hard biscuit that felt more like chewing stone than bread. Made from flour, water, and a pinch of salt, it was baked until bone dry to last for months. The problem? After weeks at sea, it usually turned into a breeding ground for maggots, mold, or even tiny sea roaches. Pirates still ate it, sometimes softening it in water or stew. And if there were maggots inside, well, they just called it extra protein. Then there was salted meat, usually pork or beef, preserved with mountains of salt and stored in wooden barrels. The taste? A sickening mix of overwhelming salt, rot, and a stench strong enough to flip your stomach. Sometimes it was so tough they had to smash it with a hammer before cutting it. Fresh fruits and vegetables were rare treasures. Without vitamin C, pirates often fell victim to scurvy. Swollen, bleeding gums, teeth falling out one by one, pale skin, weakness, and in many cases, a slow, painful death from malnutrition. Drinking water was another nightmare. Stored in wooden barrels, it would go bad in just a few weeks, turning foul, cloudy, and stinking. Sometimes a slimy green film floated on top. To make it drinkable, pirates often mixed it with rum or beer. The side effect? A constantly half-drunk crew, but at least they weren't throwing up from the water alone. So whenever pirates managed to seize a ship stocked with fresh food, it was like winning the lottery. For a short while, they'd feast like kings, before returning to the grim routine of chewing wormy stone biscuits and washing it down with slimy rum-soaked water. 3. Sleep in everyday life. On a pirate ship, comfortable sleep was nothing but a dream. There were no soft beds, no private cabins. Most of the crew slept in hammocks, swaying with the ship's movements. Others had it worse, lying directly on the hard, damp, and cold wooden floor. The sleeping quarters were cramped, stuffy, overcrowded, and always smelled musty. The ship was rarely dry. Waves crashing over the deck often leaked seawater into the crew's quarters. Sleeping in damp clothes, surrounded by the smell of mildew and salt, became normal. On top of that, bugs and rats roamed freely. Rats weren't just after food supplies, they also carried disease. Yet strangely, their presence was often seen as normal, since every ship back then was crawling with them anyway. Daily life on board was far from the heroic adventures shown in movies. The routine was exhausting and repetitive. Raising sails, repairing broken ropes, scrubbing the deck, bailing out water, and keeping the ship moving. Every crew member had a work shift, day or night, and slacking off could mean harsh punishment. Between duties, there was a lot of waiting. Waiting for the wind to pick up, waiting for land to appear, or waiting for another ship to pass by. Entertainment was simple: telling stories, gambling with dice, playing cards, or singing songs. Sometimes the only fun was drinking rum until you passed out, making it easier to ignore the smell, the rats, and the crashing waves outside. As for dramatic battles like in the movies, with cannon fire and sword duels, those were actually rare. Most pirate life was endless monotony, a grind of exhaustion, foul smells, and crushing boredom. So while pirate tales are often painted as action-packed adventures, the truth was much harsher, surviving day by day in filth and unforgiving conditions. 4. Health and injuries. On a pirate ship, health was almost never a priority. Unlike Royal Navy vessels, they had no professional doctors. If they were lucky, there might be a ship's surgeon, often a former army or merchant ship doctor who ended up with the crew. But more often, medical care came from the carpenter or an officer who was forced to play doctor simply because they were good with knives and saws. Injuries were an everyday reality. Rope burns, slipping on wet decks, or getting hit by flying wood splinters during cannon fire could turn serious fast, especially with no antiseptic. Wounds were usually wrapped in dirty cloth, sometimes sprinkled with sulfur powder, tar, or random spices to keep them from rotting too quickly. If infection spread too far, the last option was amputation. The process was brutal. A swig of rum or a stick to bite down on, a heated knife or axe, and one hard chop. The bone end was cauterized to stop the bleeding, while screams mixed with the sound of crashing waves. Many didn't survive, either from blood loss or further infection. Diseases were just as dangerous as weapons. Cramped, damp living quarters made illnesses like dysentery, typhus, and tuberculosis spread like wildfire. One sick sailor could infect the entire crew within days. And then there was scurvy, the notorious pirate killer caused by lack of vitamin C. Swollen, bleeding gums, teeth falling out, endless weakness, and wounds that refused to heal. Many pirates died not from enemy blades, but from their own failing bodies. Medical care was little more than guesswork. Rum, opium, or herbal concoctions served as painkillers, disinfectants, and courage boosters all at once. Of course, rum was the most popular, often overused until the patient passed out drunk. In short, even the smallest illness or injury could turn deadly at sea. No comfort, no sterilization, no real medicine. Survival depended on sheer toughness, the ability to endure pain, and, maybe most of all, luck. So the truth about pirate life isn't glamorous treasure chests and heroic sea battles. It was hunger, disease, sleepless nights, and the constant fight just to stay alive. Behind the legends of swashbuckling adventure lies a harsh reality. One of pain, struggle, and survival on the open sea. And maybe that's what makes their stories endure, because only the toughest could live and die as true pirates.